Crisis response, building resilience to global and local market fluctuations. Two eminent presenters will be showcased their valuable research findings at this session. And ladies and gentlemen, please note that the discussion session will be held at the end of the two presentations. Without taking much time, let's move to the important event of the session. Let me introduce our first eminent presenter of the session, Lieutenant Commander Afiq Hazim Ahmad. Lieutenant Commander Afiq Hazim Ahmad joined the Royal Malaysian Navy and was commissioned 16 June 2007. Throughout his career, he held many positions, including finance officer, procurement and contract officer, domestic and foreign military sales, executive officer and supply officer for the frigate ship. From 2021 to 2022, he also served as Deputy Chief of Administration and Deputy Chief of Logistics for the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon. He was also loaned to the Malaysia International Shipping Corporation, Sapura Energy and Petronas Group for his experience and expertise as a special project team officer. His master's degree is in strategic studies and supply chain management. In addition, he is a certified professional technologist by the Malaysian Board of Technologies and a chartered member of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport in Malaysia. Next, I cordially invite Lieutenant Commander Afiq Hazim Ahmad to share his valuable findings on strengthening Malaysia's defense supply chain resilience in the national defense industry, a part 2, security and economic resilience.
Thank you, ma'am, for the introductions. Good afternoon to our distinguished guests, senior officers, fellow academics, ladies and gentlemen. So for the next 15 to 16 minutes, I'm going to explain and to touch on Malaysia's standpoint on how a nation can survive in volatile global economy by gaining not only the security resilience, but also the economic resilience and economic prosperity by using the national defense industry as a tool in strengthening the defense supply chain resilience. So in order to understand and to go further into our discussion today, let us look at the introduction first. So in order to understand that, let's look at the definition of defense supply chains. So as been mentioned earlier by the keynote speaker, sir, so clearly it mentioned, in simple terms, it's a network of organization, a resource, activities and process from the point of origin to the point of consumption, which is in order to deliver the essential needs of service and good for the defense need. Now we are going to look at what is actually the national defense industries. It entails activities of production capital item that comprise of air, sea, land, and also the weapon system for military solution. This is to ensure that to fulfill the requirement and essential need of the defense of a nation and country. So the most important question that we need to ask this afternoon session is why the defense supply chain resilience matters to a nation or the country. First and most important thing, to ensure that a country have the operational military readiness that is required to ensure that a country can sustain and protect from any vulnerable threats, either internal or external threats, which those kind of threats can give direct or indirectly impact to the economic stability. So, other important thing is the defense supply chain resilience also important to reduce from any supply disruption. So giving example, due to the history recorded, the pandemics, and also the Russia-Ukraine war, and the most recent one, due to the Trumponomics, which is regard to the Trump tariff between US and China tariff and trade war. So these are the incidents that actually, the geopolitical tension that caused halt and delay in defense material productions and also import and export. So why does this matter? Because those external vulnerabilities can cost an organization and countries up to 45% of annual profit. So as a country are no longer able to bear that kind of losses. So lesson learned that we can took, giving example like Australia, under the trilateral agreement, AUKUS, which is Australian, UK, and United States, they started to shift and focus on the backyard industry, or they are focusing on domestic defense manufacturing. Now, we are going to look at the overview of Malaysia national defense industries. What are the strategic relevant? So the national defense industries of Malaysia are being guided in the Malaysia's defense white paper. So in this document, it clearly mentioned that the strong NDI is become a main central in order to achieve that self-reliance or resilience, where these are inspired by the British military withdrawal in 1968, where we do realize the responsibility to protect the country's sovereignty and also the economic that link to the security, it lies under us. We can no longer rely on the others external parties. Other than that, it's also been identified in this document, clearly mentioned that how the national defense industries can drive and catalyze the economic resilience and economic prosperity. It can be done where NDI has a potential for the job creations and generate specific niche skill jobs required in the defense sectors. Other than that, it has a potential to boost the local maintenance, repair, overhaul sectors, especially those related to shipping or the blue economy. And also some small medium enterprise development that have capacity to produce spare parts or doing some upgrade works. So, as we all know, military or defense sector always become a pioneer or always use a cutting-edge technology where later it was being transferred to other civilian industry. So, for the purpose of tech transfer or dual-use civilian military innovation that link to civilian industry like aerospace, automotive, transportation, I can give a few examples like the use of drone, GPS, Ethernet into internet, radar system. Those are all the military innovation that later been transferred to for the civilian and military, for civilian and commercial use. Other than most important thing, for the balance of trade between import and export, whereby boost the NDI can boost the export potential and reduce dependency on foreign supply and foreign defense supply. Giving example, the United States aerospace defense sectors, they created 3.5 million jobs and give returns in tax approximately around 37.8 billion to the government. So now looks at what are the contents of the defense white paper. So if you look at the national defense visions, the national defense interest, and the national defense objective. So those visions, interests which focus on the prosperity, the economic prosperity and objective, clearly underscore the interconnection of the national defense security and also the economy. So in order to gain and to achieve that objective, Malaysia as a country must defend its landmass, maritime zone, airspace, and also its strategic line of communications, where this nexus between the defense and economy has necessitated a shift from reliance on the foreign dependency towards more resilience and self-reliance in the national defense industry. So now looks at the Malaysia's power position. Where does Malaysia position itself in terms of resilience? So if you look at the Asia Power Index 2024, the annual score change here. So based on the Lowly Institute report produced in 2024, compared to the previous report on 2023, the one that indicate in green shows a positive improvement, while the red one, the resilience and defense network are identify some of strategic gaps, where the weak defense network indicate that they are negative 2.4 in terms of defense network score, and declining in resilience score, negative 1.2. So, however, in order to overcome this, Malaysia should take advantage of the competitive advantage that they gain through diplomatic influence, where they should leverage the diplomacy gain through it, which can be done through defense industrial collaboration and advancing diplomacy through any regional or global platform. So this can be done in order to achieve that resilience and the defense networks that we aim for. Now let's look at the overview of the Malaysia defense industry. So the current status, Malaysia as a middle power country, we are ranked at 10 among the Indo-Pacifics, and we are ranked at 4 among Southeast Asia region. And according to the Bizinger's countries defense industry classification, Malaysia are still categorized as third tier armed producer. So, which is we are limited in terms of technology, research and development, and only capable of producing small arms, ammunition, small ship, and armored truck vehicles. So, and up until today, Malaysia certified that Malaysia are still not able to provide a high competitions among the global competition regard to the arm manufacturer and regional exporters. This due to the fact that most of these companies, they still rely on the expertise of the foreign company, the OEM, and also still rely on the Ministry of Defense contract rather than they have the capacity to export their products to the free usage. So, for example, Taiwan and South Korea, they have a high defense budget and they have high economic growth. But however, vice versa, the Japan and Germany, they have low defense budget, but they also have a high economic growth after World War II. So, approximately, the Malaysian defense budget is only allocated around 4% of its GDP, which is accumulated around 4 billion. And in comparison, Singapore as Asian benchmark hinder and halt the industrial growth. There are 7 key challenges identified. The first one is regard to the frequent leadership change since 2018. So this political instability and turmoil caused that this undermine the long-term defense planning industry trust. So in order to overcome this, it's recommended for the countries and government to codify and national defense policy. By to overcome this, the government should start to mandate the enforceable technology transfers, intellectual properties, and also job creation through strict obligation where it need compulsory to be obliged by any contractors appointed by the Ministry of Defense. And government should start to foster strategic joint ventures and reform industrial collaboration, ICP, which determine the growth of the industry. So the government should start to prioritize and codify the buy Malaysian product first policy. It needs to be done, and government should start to introduce the rolling defense contract and assurance for future contract. By doing so, the government can encourage the local industries to have a sustained R&D, investment, and production planning and production. Other than that, the government should empower the MIDES members who've been registered, where they should be given procurement incentive that are merit-based rating system that link to the project or contract eligibility. The next point is important is strengthening the R&D ecosystem by boost funding and also giving incentive to the R&D, the private sector R&D. And government should also foster the collaboration between university, industry, and military collaboration in dual-use tech, giving example like AI or additive manufacturing like 3D printing. The next one regard to bureaucracy, there's a complex approval process and non-transparent procurement. In order to overcome that, the government should streamline the process and combine with the digitized defense procurement using the full utilization of e-procurement platform. These are able to boost speed, accuracy, auditability, and transparency in the acquisition process. Next one, regard to budgeting and funding, these challenges are faced by almost all countries, even the most developed country. So the government should start to advocate the gradual budget increase that align with ASEAN benchmark, despite of focus priority being given to any sectors like the healthcare, education, and welfare. And government should also prioritize scalable dual-use technologies that can benefit both civilian and also the military use. And Malaysia also start to consider and emulate the Singapore's model. They give indirect subsidy to the local defense industry, but however, they still provide a larger defense budget and prioritize R&D that shows a strong local industry support. Next one is most important part is regard to the workforce gap. It is identified that defense industries are suffer from low readiness, talent drain, underutilized expertise, and there's a declining patriotism among youth. So in order to bridge the gap, the government can consider to upskill for defense and also bridge the gap by creating the internship and also apprenticeship to stimulate that defense environment into education. At the same time, this can be done by fostering university-industry collaboration for R&D and specialized defense curricula that meet the defense need. In order to revive the patriotism, the government should reintroduce and reform national service and giving intense incentive to firms that hiring veterans, where those expertise should be utilized for the purpose of R&D, training, and productions. The last key challenge identified is regard to the weak governance, where the government, due to the overlapping mandates, oversight, and corruption issues, so the government should start to enforce transparency by implementing a real-time audit. So these are some of the screenshots where the contract milestone disclosure are being shown, where it's accessible to the public, so they can follow up through TikTok or any Facebook platform. And government also should start to unify the stakeholder to establish a defense industrial council under the innovation ecosystem stakeholder model, which is to collaborate and integrate the planning and execution among the industrial player, the defense, education, finance, and other relevant ministries. I almost come to the end of today's presentations. So, in conclusion, the NEI is being proven have ability to provide and to become an engine for a resilient and sustainable economy, and ability for the country to withstand and recover from any global shock, where it also have between the balance of economic, social, and environmental goals of development. So it matters as it gives a lot of benefit, as I explained earlier, but however, government should give a lot of priority and focus for all those key challenges identified and overcome those based on the recommendations I provided earlier, where in long-term run, the government are able to align this initiative, which is aligned with the Malaysia Madani National Grand Vision and Strategy, which focus on inclusive and people-centric development. And at the end of the day, I believe by booster and by strengthening the national defense industry, not only Malaysia, but Sri Lanka also can build a resilient, future-ready economy. With that, I conclude my presentation today. Thank you for your time and commitment. I hand over the stage to the moderator, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Commander Afiq Azim Mohammed, for your informative presentation and also sharing your valuable insights which you have of your research which you have conducted in the Malaysian context. Next, let me introduce our second eminent presenter of the session, Lieutenant Commander Hansani Karunaratne. Lieutenant Commander Hansani Karunaratne holds a Bachelor of Science in Logistics Management awarded by General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University, Sri Lanka. She followed a Sub-Lieutenant Technical Logistic course and Junior Naval Staff course at Naval and Maritime Academy, Trincomalee. Currently, she is following Lawn Logistic Management course at Naval and Maritime Academy, Trincomalee. Lieutenant Commander Hansani Karunaratne has held various esteemed appointments throughout her career, demonstrating exceptional leadership and dedication. She has served as a staff officer, logistics officer at SLNS Takshila, secretary to the Director General, Health and Services, and secretary to the Commandant of the Naval and Maritime Academy. Beyond her professional achievements, she has excelled in sports, particularly life-saving events. She was the Sri Lanka Navy life-saving team captain in 2019 and was honored as a Sri Lanka Navy Colour recipient for life-saving in the same year, recognizing her outstanding contributions and skills in the field. Ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to invite Lieutenant Commander Hansani Karunaratne to share her research findings on navigating maritime logistics risk, lessons from the Sri Lanka's Navy's crisis management strategies.
Thank you, ma'am. Distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Commander Hansani Karunaratne. Today, I'll be presenting the topic of navigating maritime logistic risk, lessons from the Sri Lanka Navy's crisis management strategies. This is the content of my presentation as shown on the screen. Let me start with the introduction. The Sri Lanka strategic location of Sri Lanka in the Indian Ocean region positions it as a crucial hub for the logistic maritime. As an island nation situated in major naval route, Sri Lanka is particularly vulnerable to the maritime disasters. A multitude of logistical risk and security challenges within its extensive maritime domain, ranging from illegal, unreported, unregulated IUU fishing, drug trafficking, and human smuggling to the more recent threats of environmental disasters as major ship accidents. The Sri Lanka Navy plays a pivotal role in navigating these complex risks, adapting its strategies to ensure maritime security and respond to crises that can significantly impact the flow of logistics. My research examines the major risks encountered by the Sri Lanka Navy's maritime environmental and explores the crisis management strategies employed by Sri Lanka Navy, aiming to draw valuable lessons for the broader logistics community. The Sri Lanka Navy must implement well-defined strategies and ensure that their personnel are thoroughly trained and equipped with necessary tools. For that, I have conducted my literature review under the following points. First one is maritime logistic risk. Let's see what is the maritime logistic risk is. It can be identified as potential challenges, hazards, or uncertainties that can disrupt the smooth flow of goods and operations in maritime logistics. The following reasons can be identified as the factors affecting the maritime logistic risk. First one is geopolitical tensions and trade policies. International trade disputes and political conflicts disrupt shipping routes, affecting maritime logistics and increasing operational cost. Next point is environmental regulations and sustainability. Stricter environmental policies require shipping companies to adopt cleaner fuel and green technologies. Rising cost and it became a logistical challenge. Next one is technological disruptions and cybersecurity. Advancement like blockchain and AI improve efficiency, but also it introduce risks like cyber attacks and data breaches in the maritime logistics. Next point is economic uncertainties and market fluctuations. Global economic instability, fluctuating fuel prices and currency exchange rates impact to the shipping demand and profitability. Next point is climate change and extreme weather events. Rising sea levels, hurricanes, and unpredictable weather patterns disrupt shipping routes and threaten maritime infrastructure. Next one, increasing complexity and ambiguity of security environment at sea. Increasing threats like terrorism and transnational crimes require enhanced surveillances and coordinated security efforts. This is very important points. Shipping accidents and environmental impact. Maritime disasters like MV Express Pearl highlight the risk of shipping accidents and their environmental consequences. Next point is Sri Lanka's strategic importance and vulnerability in maritime logistics. Located in the Indian Ocean, near to the vital trade routes, Sri Lanka aims to be a global logistic hub, but faces risks like disruption of sea lines of communication. The Sri Lanka Navy plays a crucial role in maintaining maritime stability and ensuring safe navigation. Next point is regulatory framework and governance. International conventions like SOLAS and MARPOL, along with Sri Lanka's Marine Pollution Prevention Act, help regulate maritime safety and environmental protection. However, incidents like Express Pearl disaster highlight the need for updated laws to address modern shipping challenges. Next point is crisis management and maritime logistics. Maritime transportation supports 80% of global trade, making crisis management essential for logistic stability. Effective risk assessment, strong communication, and trained personnel are key to be mitigating disruptions and ensuring resilience. In the methodology part, my study employed a desk review method analyzing international reports, research papers, web articles, handbooks, and case studies to build a comprehensive knowledge base. A mixed method approach to issue used incorporating case studies, analyzing, and policy review to examine maritime logistic risk and the Sri Lanka Navy's crisis management strategies. Selection criteria prioritize the case studies and policy documents relevant to Sri Lanka, particularly those addressing shipping accidents, environmental threats, and economic impact. Data collection focuses on reviewing diversified sources to ensure thorough understanding of maritime logistics challenges and response. I have selected 2 major shipping accidents in Sri Lanka. The Express Pearl disaster in May 2021 involved a cargo shipping ship catching fire near to Colombo, releasing toxic chemicals, oil, and plastic pellets into the ocean. Similarly, September 2020, MT New Diamond, an oil tanker carrying a crude oil, caught fire off the eastern coast, raising fear of an oil spill. According to this picture, the Express Pearl fire in May 2021 was one of Sri Lanka's worst maritime disasters, causing severe environmental and logistics challenges. The incident was described as a new kind of oil spill due to the release of toxic chemicals and plastic debris significantly impact to marine biodiversity, including coral reefs and seagrasses. The Sri Lanka Navy played a crucial role in managing this crisis, but the country's limited infrastructure for handling large-scale maritime emergencies worsened this situation. This disaster underscored the vulnerability of Sri Lanka's maritime logistics and the urgent need for stronger environmental and crisis management measures. Next incident, the MT New Diamond oil tanker caught fire on 3rd September 2020, approximately 38 nautical miles off the Sri Lankan coast, leading to the tragic death of a Filipino crew member, while the crude oil cargo remained mostly intact. Around 1,700 metric tons of fuel oil leaked into the ocean, raising concerns about severe environmental damage, including disruption of fishing, along them harm to the marine life and coral ecosystems. Here are my recommendations. First one, strategic importance and maritime risk. Sri Lanka's location in Indian Ocean makes a key maritime logistics hub, vulnerable to risk like illegal activity, trade disruptions, and environmental threats. The Sri Lanka Navy plays a crucial role safeguarding maritime security. Legal and security measures. Implement strict maritime, deter illegal activity affecting logistics. Maintaining non-aligned status with avoid geopolitical entanglements. Next one, collaboration and international partnerships. Strengthening bilateral agreements with India to counter transnational organized crimes. Conduct joint maritime patrols within India and foreign fleets for enhanced surveillances. Improve intelligence sharing with sister forces, foreign navies, and maritime agencies. Next one is operational and structural improvements need to be done. Develop mechanisms to protect sea lines of communication from transnational organized crimes. Optimize Sri Lanka's size considering the national budget constraints. Establish a hybrid navy integrating available large vessels for operational efficiency. Coordinate efforts between Sri Lanka Navy, Army, Air Force, Police, Coast Guard, and other security agencies. Next one is training and skill development. Conduct regular training for naval personnel to ensure professionalism. recruit well-trained, educated personnel to improve maritime crisis handling. Next one is technology and surveillance enhancement. Invest in advanced technology equipment to strengthen coastal monitoring, expand aerial surveillance with UAVs and regional maritime patrols, improve maritime domain awareness through regional exercises and intelligence sharing. Next one is environmental and cybersecurity measures. Develop innovative technology for marine environment preventions, implement cybersecurity measures to safeguard maritime logistics operations, enhance supply chain visibility and operational efficiency through digital resilience. Now I have come to the conclusion of my presentation. Sri Lanka's strategic location in the Indian Ocean necessity to strong maritime security framework to protect logistics operation. Sri Lanka Navy must ensure strict maritime laws, enhance surveillances and collaborate with regional allies. To overcome these maritime logistic risks, modern naval capabilities, improving personnel training, and integrating advanced technology will strengthen security efforts. Maintaining a non-aligned stance and fostering interoperability among security forces will further safeguard maritime logistics. A well-coordinated and technological advancement Navy will ensure the Sri Lanka's and economic growth in Indian Ocean. These are my suggestions for the future researchers. Under this title, suggest to do future researchers on trending areas on crisis management strategies. Here are my references. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Commander Hansani Karunaratne, for your insightful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, now the forum is open for the audience discussions for next 15 minutes.
Good afternoon. I think both the presentations are, very comprehensive, and I think it has a lot of things to carry to these young officers. I think I have one question from Lieutenant Ahmed. Basically, you mentioned in your strategy, I think this is for one Malaysian, but by Malaysian, right? That's a new. I think you are going to implement it, your suggestions. What are the tools that you are going to use in implementing this recommending one Malaysian policy? How you are going to plan this for future in your country?
Thank you so much, sir, for the question. So basically, the Buy Malaysian products first actually have been long implemented. We've been implemented since 1997, where this become our initiative introduced by our former fourth Prime Minister, Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, where due to the financial crisis in 1997, where it's escalated from Thailand, so we started to introduce that policies. But however, that policy are not being extended for the defense procurements. So at that time, we don't have that kind of capacity as we have today. So now we started to believe that we should start to implement and endorse that policy in the context of defense material procurement. So we are going to use the same concept where how we are doing it, normally first is through a policy maker. So they need to put it in the contract clause. They have to oblige with specific requirement for that. And most important things, nowadays what we've been doing, I have my experience doing foreign procurements. We substitute almost every OEM products. And we try to, I'm not saying copy and paste, but we copy and upgrade. Because when we purchase for a foreign equipment, sometimes we are paying for the brand. But we are supposed to paying for the quality and specification. So now we do realize that we have a lot of potential local small medium enterprise that can produce a spare part and also can do a major work and upgrade work that almost have the same capacity as the OEM. So the only things that is lack and flaws that we identify is the enforcement by the government. Giving example, like our strategic program, Royal Malaysian Navy 1525 program, Royal Malaysian Air Force CAP 55 program, those programs are not integrated and does not consider the industrial players' point of view. They are not being part of that strategic program. So means that when we eliminate them, we are not giving them opportunity to make them ready, and they are not ready in terms of to adopt and to absorb with the technology that required for future needs. So in order to do that, one of way of doing it, we should start to integrate the local defense industries. Mean the policy need to also involve them. We did that before. For your information, sir, the defense white paper is newly introduced in 2022, where previously we only, I would say, using the national defense policy as our main reference of Bible. So we do realize the national defense policy is fully oriented on the defense perspective alone. We never consider how the defense industries, how the defense sectors will give an impact towards the others. The education, the healthcare, the welfare sectors. So the good point, when we introduce the defense white paper, we able to integrate it, where those defense white paper we've been produced are not only involved the military point of view, but also from various sectors, where that's why I mentioned earlier, we need to get a bipartisan consensus to ensure the continuity. How we are doing it? We make it as a national interest, not a Ministry of Defense interest, not a Navy interest. Means, regardless of the election cycle, whether you change government, by hook, by crook, you need to ensure that there's a continuity for that implementation of policy, sir. So I hope I answer your question, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the two papers. My question goes to Lieutenant Commander Karunaratne. You were talking about risk management. And in your research, you expressed that Express Pearl incident has made a lot of impact, great impact on our economy and regulatories, legal aspects, everything. So still, when it comes to legal action, still we don't know where the case is being heard. And sometimes there was a story telling that case cannot be here in these our courts as our legal frame is not such strong. So while you are carrying out this research, can you put on any light on this, how our legal system when it comes to the accidents out at sea, how we prepare to address that situation? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, we have Marine Pollution Prevention Act introduced in year 2008, sir. But according to this act, this kind of situations not covered. Because of that, we couldn't do anything for this situation. Because of that, this incident is not having any answer to our economy or for us. So because of that, we need to have new implementations to these kind of oil spills, especially when we come to the Sri Lankan context, Sri Lankan Navy context, we should have to have a well-trained personnel to mitigate this kind of situations. During that incident, we have seen Indian Navy and other navies supported so much for us, so that I consider this as a maritime logistic, very huge maritime logistic risk for us, because if this kind of situation happened, we couldn't get any economic advantages for us. Because of that, this Marine Pollution Prevention Act is very important to mitigate this kind of situations. We should have to have very thorough law enforcement for that, sir.
I'm Lieutenant Commander Indika Dasanayaka from NMA Directing Staff. My question goes to Lieutenant Commander Ahmed. And in your presentation, then you have mentioned that, and the bureaucracy, it's a resilience and growth, it's a huge problem, an issue for the country. Which my question is, when we consider that the Kuznets theory of the development, the same and issues which we have in Sri Lanka, what you understood about in your context and your country, and experience and you studied in your research to suggest to overcome these issues?
Could you please repeat the question?
In your presentation, you mentioned that the barrier resilience for the growth and bureaucracy and good governance. And the same it is when we consider an economic concept, and the Kuznets theory, the long development, the same is a takeoff condition, the same things which he has mentioned. In my question is, when we consider in Sri Lanka as well as still having this issue, in your context and in studies, what do you suggest and you observed during your research to overcome these issues?
So thank you, sir, for the questions. So when it comes to the governance issue, I would say the most important point is related to the political will of the government. So those are the most important things that I believe is become the main factors to ensure that the countries can continue for the next steps by having a really good policy. So I mentioned earlier during the presentation, the first factors is actually interconnected. First and foremost, you need to place a really good leaderships who can drive the leaderships that can drive the industrial growth. And later, the leaderships factors can actually drive and construct the government. So one way of doing it, as I mentioned earlier, by having that bipartisan consensus from both major political parties, and most important thing is, I believe most important thing is that regard to the bureaucracy issue which related to the corruptions issues. So we're also facing the same issues as mentioned earlier. So one way of doing it to increase that transparency is we conduct a very transparent investigation, giving example as earlier, where we also allow people to have an access to whatever been discussed, whatever report are being disclosed for the public. It's accessible to the public. So these are way of actually to ensure that the governments can continue to have a really good way of conducting in governance. So other than that I can highlight it is regard to the, when it comes to bureaucracy, I think it's really hard to tell. So I believe Malaysia also are corrupted. So I won't say, I won't comment on other countries as well, but having a really good procedure. My experience, I was appointed as the Certified Integrity Officer under Malaysia Anti-Corruption Agency. We do realize, basically the military organization, we have very fragmented organizations and structures in our organizations. These are due to the fact that we inherited from what we have from our earlier ancestors that been delivered to us. So, and we have a tendency that we are reluctant to change. I'm trying to narrow down the scope within our military context, where we reluctant to change and to eliminate some of that procedure. So it is important for an organization to make that kind of changes, to eliminate bureaucracy. They need to be able and ready to make a gradual and dramatical change in terms of organizational structures, and also to eliminate some of the layers of process that are not should be done. I'm giving example like Singapore and Malaysia in comparison. For example, in Malaysia, if you want to build something, you want to have a business, you have to go through 1,001 process, and you have to go through so many departments just to get approval. But in Singapore, they are doing it better. They have a very centralized concept where they only require it to be done only by one single entities to do all the process it's been done. So the question is, does the government willing to eliminate some of the organization, do the restructure of the organizations to achieve that? Malaysia tried to do that during our fourth Prime Minister premiership, where we tried to eliminate some of the organization, we tried to remove some of the unnecessary layer of jobs and also process, but it's really hard and it's quite difficult. So these are the things I can't elaborate during this session. In simple answer, we need to conduct a comprehensive studies, and it also involve all the relevant stakeholders. I hope I answer your question, sir. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, we can give one more chance to the audience.
This question goes to Lieutenant Commander Ahmed. So in your presentation, you were talking much about the NDIs, that means National Defense Industries. So I have one question. I think you made a recommendation on the same area. So if military is engaging for these industries, like we'll say like it's a production of whatever the fields, basically in the outside also, so they have the same competitors outside, that means the private sector or the public sector. So we being in the military is having more infrastructure and the resources, so we can easily, kill the competition of the market, basically. So in your context, I'm asking, since you have done a study in your Malaysian context, so what my question is, how you manage this one? Because there will be a grudge between the military involving in the industries. So what is your suggestion for this area?
So thank you, sir, for the questions. I totally agree with your statement, sir. I do realize one special characteristic of Sri Lankan Navy, you guys have that self-reliance and resilience, where you guys are no longer required to be dependent on the local industries. So these are, I believe this can become a challenge. Unlike Malaysia, we used to have all that capability. So these are also an arguments by most of the senior officers who are still in the service, or also the retired, the veterans, where we started to eliminate, we started to shrinking and downsizing our strength and numbers. Giving an example, the Royal Malaysian Navy, we only have 17,000 personnel, the total strength. So due to the fact when we downsizing that numbers, we also eliminate some of the expertise where previously we do have. So what we are doing, actually, we try to prioritize the expertise that only required and essential for the operational need. The other things which we believe can be done and conducted by the external parties, by the local industries, we are going to outsource it. Our Malaysian governments, we have a very strict policy, procurement policy, where most of the procurement, you need to outsource to the local suppliers, regardless if you have that capacity of that. I'm not restricting, so I'm not trying to stick to only the defense equipment. Also, it's regard to the service, catering service. We have our cooks. We did better. Most of our chef is doing better a lot. but yet we give the opportunity to the local industries. You have to imagine, other than, I know that I believe that you can eliminate the competition outside, but you have to understand that when the government injected that money and you did the procurement process, when you distribute the money to the local economic, you are going to have that local economic growth. So that's way how we are doing it. So that's why when you see in Malaysia, most of the naval or military base and camp, they are the most places where they're occupied by most of the local defense industries and suppliers, because they see that is the best and a good place for them to invest and making money, because they know that the government giving them that kind of support. So, but however, we still maintain that specializations where those expertise in the service, we are going to monitor the progress of the work. The work are being done by the external, by the suppliers or by the local vendors, but yet on the monitoring aspect, the quality assurance, the quality check is still done by us. We still need that expertise. And due to that, the Malaysian government, by having that kind of policy, most of our personnel, they can focus purely on their main operational requirements. Their focus is entirely focused on their main area of expertise. They don't have to do things which are no longer, we believe that it can be outsourced, which is not our core business, so that we can focus to achieve our goal and objective of the Royal Malaysian Navy. So I hope I answer that question, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, our eminent presenters and also the respective audience, for your constructive comments, valuable insights, and also the valuable suggestions given to enrich the discussion. Since we are reaching to the end of the scheduled time, let me sum up the session. Our first presenter, Lieutenant Commander Afiq Hazim Mohammed, shared his research findings on strengthening Malaysia's defense supply chain resilience in national defense industry, a path to security and economic resilience. The study has emphasized the importance of localized production, technological innovations, strategic partnerships, and investment in domestic manufacturing to achieve national security and resilience in this uncertain world. And also, our second presenter, Lieutenant Commander Hansani Karunaratne, shared her research findings on navigating maritime logistics, lessons from the Sri Lanka's Navy's crisis management strategies. She has emphasized the significance of collaborations with foreign navies, enforcing maritime regulations, building interreportability with sister forces, and making regional partnerships to ensure the resilience and sustainability of maritime logistics. I would like to suggest both presenters to integrate your upcoming research regarding the emerging areas in the discipline of logistics and supply chain management, where our keynote speaker clearly pointed out in the morning session, including integration of AI and HI, that means the combination of artificial intelligence with the human intelligence, and the strategic collaborations, human-centric work designs, commercial innovations, targeting the sustainability and resilience in an economy. And also, I greatly appreciate the hard work and dedication shown by both presenters, and I wish you all the very best for your future endeavors and for your future studies as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite our young logisticians, academics, scholars, and also the responsible officers, and also the industry experts in our valuable audience to incorporate these valuable research insights and the knowledge for your upcoming research works, and also for the decision making, policy formulations, and also the regulatory tasks related to the logistics and supply chain management. With that request, we are marking the conclusion of the session 2 of the Logistics Conference 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us. Have a successful day ahead. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, I must express my gratitude to Mrs. Buddhini Amratunga for moderating the second session and to the two eminent speakers for presenting their research papers. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now take this opportunity to invite Director General Budget and Finance Rear Admiral Manjula Disanaika, accompanied by Senior Course Coordinator of Long Logistics Management Course, Commander Ashoka Senadira, to present mementos to the resource personnel for conducting a productive session. The moderator of the second session, Mrs. Buddhini Amaratunga. The speaker of fourth paper, Lieutenant Commander Afiq Ahmed. The speaker of fifth paper, Lieutenant Commander Hansini Karunaratna. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, now we have come to the end of the second session of the Logistics Conference 2025, and we shall conclude the proceedings with refreshments arranged at previously notified locations. Dignitaries who received special invitations to attend refreshments at Bistro. Dignitaries who are wearing blue and green handbands may proceed to the lawn in front of the auditorium for refreshments. We shall meet again at 1455 hours to commence the third and the final session of the Logistics Conference 2025. Thank you.